Welcome to Hardware Asylum. We're once again working on the classic case build. In previous videos we tore the system down to check out what was inside. We repaired some damage on the motherboard and some rusty spots inside the chassis. And now we're in the process of cleaning. The first order of business is to Retrobrite the front panel. The front bezel on the classic case is a unique design that I have never really seen before. It has the traditional turbo, reset, and key lock, plus a double-digit LED display for system speed. Rocker switch is in the standard location up at the top, and we have a keyboard connector at the bottom. Most of the designs that I have seen and used follow this pattern, where we also have a reset and turbo switch and the key lock and a double-digit display plus the rocker switch in the upper part, but there is no provision down here for keyboard DIN, and the vent is running vertically instead of horizontally. As I showed in a previous video, the chassis has provisions for this keyboard DIN in the bottom, and it was really up to the OEMs that were ordering the case on whether or not they wanted to have that component installed or not. However, for this segment, what we're going to be doing is removing everything from the bezel so that we can start the Retrobrite process. Now on the back of the dashboard we can see the connections for the key lock, these two switches. They're in a couple barrels that were extruded into the plastic. And the LED lights have little dabs of hot glue that held them in place. So we just need to remove those real quick. There's a couple of, well, usually there's a couple of screws. This one just has one screw here to hold the LED display in place, and everything should just come off. Let's go ahead and remove the key switch. They're just held in place with a couple of tabs. You press them with your finger and it should just pop out. Switch is out. That was a chore. Most of these components have to come out individually, even though they're all braided together, so we have to untangle this little rat nest. I may have mentioned this before, but Magitronic, based off of the research that I've done, they were kind of the original OEM, kind of like the Dells and the Compaqs of the early computing era. They just happened to manufacture everything that went into building the PC. So the blue wire here is our reset switch. The red one is the power to the LED display. We have a black wire which I'm not sure exactly what goes to. Red and white is the hard drive LED. The yellow hooks into the LED display. And this Halloween colored one is the turbo switch. Don't lose that screw. Here's our double-digit display. It's on quite a large board. The way you set the digits is by moving these jumpers around, and those will turn on and off certain segments. They're on the display itself. So in the end, I needed to take this into the house and heat it up because the Hardware Asylum Labs is a bit chilly this time of year. But I was able to remove the plastic piece, and I needed to do that because I needed to press the LEDs out from this side to get over the glue that was used to attach them. And as you can see, it's just attached right there. So they insert the LED, they put a dab of glue in there, and then it's there for basically forever. These switches, on the other hand, those are pressed in place. They're just your standard plastic switch, and this cap is pushed on top, and that is what fills the void here to give you a button press. unfortunately, if you happen to lose these things, people think that you can just 3D print new ones, and I'm not sure if you'd be able to get the tolerances good enough to, one, make it the right size, and two, get that opening there so that it would fit onto a key switch. I might give it a try though. So for the Retrobright, we're going to be using the panel, the buttons, and these two covers. We need to get a little bit of the glue off of here, and we can see under the plastic cover, the plastic itself is a bit whiter than the rest of it, which kind of gives the impression that this might be the standard color, and it's only slightly yellowed. However, if you compare it to this bezel, it is severely yellowed. And truth be told, before I retrobrited this one, I thought the whole thing was slightly yellow just because the entire plastic panel had changed color, which is kind of what happened here. So we'll get it into the bath and see what it looks like. By now, I would think everyone has seen a retrobriting process. It's basically taking a hydrogen peroxide solution, mixing it with a little bit of UV light, and after a certain amount of time, it will reverse the yellowing in certain ABS plastics. For my process, I take a slightly different approach, and I'm using a thermal relay and a beverage heater to make sure that the solution that I have my bezel submerged in will stay at around 50 degrees centigrade. I then put it in a plastic tub and cover it to make sure that I don't lose any of the liquid. And for the hydrogen peroxide solution, I'm using a 40 volume clear developer. In researching this process, I found a couple of very helpful YouTube videos, which I will link down in the show notes below. If you have any questions about what I did or how I built this, please leave a comment. This is at the start. This is after 2 hours. This is 3 hours. And done. The classic case bezel was in the bath for 4 hours. And it turned out pretty nice. Now that the Retrobright process is complete, I went ahead and reassembled the front panel. I applied a little bit of protectant to the plastic and wired everything back up. It's important that you braid or twist the wires to keep down on any electromagnetic interference. I went ahead and also cleaned up the chassis. Turns out that down in the base there was some paint overspray. That's how the impression of the 5 1/4 inch drive cover was done in the bottom of the chassis. But a little bit of paint stripper and some water, a little bit of elbow grease, and some metal polish, I was able to get the bottom to look really, really nice. Able to clean up the back as well. And of course, cleaned up the rust from the battery damage. There isn't much that I can do about the chassis itself. There is a few dents that I might be able to pop out, but I'm not really going to spend too much time on it. There's a few scuffs in the paint. The important part was to get the paint as clean as possible on the inside as well. Of course, the next step will be to reassemble everything that we took apart. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. I'll see you in the next one.